Good evening. I'd like to open this meeting of the Buxton Planning Board for March 31st. Next item on the agenda is a Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, for liberty and justice for all. Next item on the agenda is a public hearing for proposed zoning amendments. Do I have a motion to open the hearing?
I make a motion to open the public hearing.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion by Scott, a second by Craig to open the public hearing. Discussion, all those in favor? Will be 5 in favor. Okay, I'll refer to the written material. There's copies here there's copies up front, if people are interested. And this has been posted on the town website, correct? Mm-hmm. Okay. And these are items that were going to be put on the ballot, either secret ballot. I think majority of these are going to be on the floor of town meeting, correct? Okay. So I'll start with the first item, which is 5.4.2, plumbing and electrical permits required. I'm not going to read through all the material. Basically, what we're saying is that we're going to have a commercial plumbing, electrical inspector and a plumbing inspector, and that the fees from those permits are going to pay for the salary of those inspectors. Correct?
This zoning change doesn't talk about the fees, but the only change is that right now we don't do commercial electric permits.
Okay,
The state does them, and we want to do them.
okay,
It'd be a better service to the townspeople to have an inspection within 1 or 2 days than wait weeks for one state inspector who has 2 counties to cover.
okay. But we're talking about, we do residential plumbing inspection now, don't we?
Plumbing, yes,
Plumbing, okay.
and electric,
And electric.
yep.
But this is commercial. Okay. Any questions or comments on 5.4.2?
Wouldn't it be just more clear if we had in any structure, commercial, common, residential, open parentheses? I know it says any structure, but most commercial places around, you need a state instead of town. 'Cause a lot of towns don't have electrical inspectors. And I'll defer to you, but that's,
This is what we discussed before we put these out to,
I know.
Okay, next item.
It was another bite at the apple.
Next item, 5.5, minimum amount of permit exemption. We're changing the amount from $1,000 to $2,500. That is the cost basis to get a building permit, correct? Okay. Any questions or comments on Article 5.5? Okay, moving on. Article 10. All access roads, 10.1, I'll read this one, these two, because they're fairly short. 10.1.A.4, all access roads require a paved apron for a minimum of 50 feet where they connect with a paved public road. Article 10.1.B.7, all access roads require a paved apron for a minimum of 50 feet where they connect with a paved public road. Those are basically the same, aren't they? Mm-hmm. Okay. Questions or comments on Article 10.1? Okay, moving on to the proposed ordinance amendments for sprinklers, and we have someone from the fire department here to comment on these. We're basically, do you want to give us a brief outline of what you're proposing to do?
Sure. So this recommendation strikes requirements for sprinklers in attic spaces with no living storage space. It was an addition to our local ordinance that is not required by NFPA code. So removing this requirement brings our ordinance in line with what many other towns are doing for residential sprinklers and reduces contractor confusion.
Okay. And then we amended the size of the scuttle holes, is that correct? For the attic
Any notes on
access?
that one?
We removed the wording that says any attic scuttle bigger than 24 by 24 must be sprinkled up in the attic.
Because that was in conflict with the building code, which said that the attic scuttle hole had to be bigger than 24 by 24.
Correct.
Okay. Okay, and then moving on, I'll take any comments or questions on that section. Then moving on to 13.5, section, we're deleting section 1.1 of II related to fire ponds. Would the fire department like to comment on that?
We're taking that.
Oh, yes, the fire ponds. So they're just an unreliable water source for us. Especially last summer, a lot of our ponds, they dried out, so we couldn't even use them. So this leaves a developer with the option to install fire tanks or sprinkler all units in a 5-unit subdivision or more.
Okay, so we're basically limiting the provision for fire protection in the subdivision ordinance that allows for fire ponds due to the fact of weather-related, I don't want to say climate change, but we've had numerous fire ponds that have been insufficiently filled to meet our fire suppression needs.
Correct.
Okay. Any questions on that? Okay, and then we've amended section 7, section 13K 401, with the sprinkler system, which we talked about. Okay, I'll move on to section 1123C. We're increasing the amount of square feet in an ADU from 500 to 800 square feet of living space, and that's of living space. So that doesn't include, and correct me if I'm wrong, that doesn't include hallways, stairwells, includes bathrooms.
Closets, or
Bathrooms,
mechanical
closets.
rooms.
Okay? Any questions or comments on section 1123C? Okay? Moving on, Article 13, proposed zoning amendments to clarify submission requirements for subdivision applications. We're adding to Article 13 that a sole profile log meeting requirements of section 13.5H must be submitted for each lot. And what we've eliminated is that we required 2 specific locations of evaluations on each lot. The issue we had was a lot of times the buildings or the infrastructure ends up where the proposed test pits were done on the lots.
What we're changing is that we were requiring a full septic design.
Yes.
Where really all we need is the test pit logs, because we don't know. 9 times out of 10, people were placing the houses so that they had to get a new septic design.
Yep. Questions or comments on that article?
And then,
Yes.
the public, and they wouldn't speak,
You sure?
they're still gonna have to have a septic design.
Henry, you got to go to the podium, I'm sorry.
If anyone doesn't know, you're still gonna have to have a septic design.
Yes.
When you build,
When you build.
yes,
But you just have to show that the soils are suitable,
for the subdivision.
which is a lot less expensive than $600 or $700 or $800 for a full one that may not be used.
The developer's usually paying the $700, and then the contractor's coming in and doesn't like that location, so he's also
Sure.
paying.
And while I'm right up here, back up on, all access roads require a paved apron. Now, that's for a named road, it's not for a driveway.
It's for a private road that can now be dirt, that we changed that last year.
When do you hit a private road? When you have more than two?
Yep,
Okay, you can have two dwelling units on a driveway. Okay, yep. And just, little picky thing, just the wording on, when you say a building permit shall not be required for fences, replacements, and roofs and stuff. It says the code enforcement officer shall be consulted before starting work. Well, really just advise, just so you'll be aware of it, right? Nothing that you have to approve.
correct, and that wording is already in the ordinance as far as, if it was $1,000 or less, the code enforcement officer should be consulted. Really, all that does is gives us the opportunity to put a note in the file that we got a phone call that they're gonna do roofing, they didn't need a permit, so that when a neighbor calls, we can say, we can look in the file, we don't have to rethink or go out and see what they're doing. Yeah, they don't need a permit.
Understood, yep, okay.
If you want to stop me and comment on these, I don't hate to make you go back and forth, but feel free. Okay. Hey. We did Article 13, correct?
Yep.
Okay. Article 2, definitions. Proposed zoning ordinance amendments to clarify rules for on-premise signs and allow internally lit and changeable signs. I'll refer to the written material. This is at least 7 or 8 pages long. No, excuse me, 3 pages long. Does anybody have any questions or comments on this article? We're basically proposing to allow lit signs in some areas of town. If you refer to the land use table, it will say, or does it say in here where they're allowed and where they're not allowed?
Residential, village, business commercial, light commercial. That's it.
Okay. I think part of the impetus was that, especially here at Town Hall, if something happens fairly quickly, it's tough for staff to go out and change the sign, meaning there's maybe a power outage at the transfer station or something has happened. It would be easier for them to notify the general public with an electronic sign out front stating what the issue is. Any questions or comments on that article? Okay. Proposed zoning, okay, make sure, yep. Proposed zoning amendments to allow certain farm-related uses, car washes, and business contractor uses. Again, I'll refer to the written material, I can go down through each one. I've added the definition of agritourism facility, animal husbandry, artisanal food or beverage facility, business contractor, commercial composting, and a commercial farm. And all those definitions are listed along with where they fall in Article 9 in the land use table. We had, we basically need to clarify some of these entities into our land use table. Any questions or comments on that article?
I have a comment.
Okay, yep.
So we got from the town attorney some alternate language for this same, mostly for the animal husbandry or commercial farm. And I think I'm prepared to suggest that we don't make any changes. We don't add commercial farm as a use, or we don't do animal husbandry, small scale or large scale. It's a bigger change than what I think we prepared for, and I think it's gonna take more research, because agriculture, farming is regulated and protected by the state Department of Ag. So I'm proposing that our fix that we're trying to fix might be making it worse, so that we just take that part out.
Okay, so you're saying the animal husbandry we already have a definition
Right.
for.
So if we
you're
strike
saying
the
the
commercial
proposed definition we want to delete.
And the commercial farming,
Okay. Is the board okay with removing this
Yes.
definition of animal husbandry from now?
Yeah, I think it makes more sense to strike that.
Yes, I'm fine.
Scott? Go ahead.
The business contractor one, I got some information on that.
Yep.
And I spoke about that before. That is going to be different than a home occupation, a small businessman, right? Who's a carpenter or a plumber, a single person. That person, for a home occupation, you don't have to come before this board, do you?
correct.
Correct, okay. That's what I just wanted to be clear of. That's
Okay, yep,
acceptable.
yep.
Because that's, for a small guy, a little guy, doesn't have a bunch of employees, it's $600 to come before here, right?
Yeah. Okay, so,
I don't know, the animal husbandry, why wouldn't we keep that definition as it's written?
Why don't we just keep what we have?
4.
Oh, we had an incident where it wasn't really clarified as far as animal husbandry as being kind of a personal thing, right? This,
For a person's own consumption and the incidental sale of products?
correct,
Yeah, we could keep,
but it doesn't say that now.
right.
I think it would be good to keep this definition.
okay, I mean, I'm fine with it. All right, let's talk about commercial farm. That's something that we need to do some more work on, especially because Patty's saying that it relates to some of the state regulations and stuff like that. So is the board in favor of removing we basically have to, I don't think we have time to rewrite these, do we? No. So we basically have to remove that definition and work on that for a later date. Is the board in favor of doing
Commercial
that?
farming?
Yes.
I'd be okay with that for now.
Okay. Heath? Okay. Roger?
Yeah, it makes sense because if the state's already at a certain regulation, we can't contrast that, can we?
Yeah.
So,
So why don't we put that on the agenda for next time? You okay?
Yep.
Okay. So we're gonna, do we need a vote on this or what? No.
can you make
So
a
we're gonna
motion to
remove-
strike it?
Well, I think we should vote.
After the public hearing, right?
Okay.
So for now, we're gonna remove the definition of commercial farming from the definition and from the land use table.
Yeah.
Correct? Okay. And then, Article 1122. Proposed zoning ordinance amendments to clarify rules for elderly and affordable housing developments. What we've done, we've added the word elderly to 1122F, 1122F1, 1122F32, 1122F6, and we've added the line at 1122F7. Pursuant to the definition of base density in Article 2 of this ordinance, the buildable area requirement found in Section 9.6 does not apply to affordable or elderly housing developments. Okay, the reason for this was basically,
Because before last year, this section 1122 applied to elderly and affordable housing.
okay,
When we adopted changes for LD 2003,
yep,
that was all about affordable housing.
Yep.
And those two got separated.
yep,
So we're just trying to put them back together like we had it before.
okay. Questions or comments from the board? Questions or comments from the general public? Seeing none. Okay, and then the last item I have is proposed amendment to change the hours for medical marijuana registered dispensaries and cultivation facilities. We're changing the hours from 8 to 5, Monday through Saturday, to 8 to 9 p.m. Monday through Sunday. We had someone who owns a dispensary here in town come in and ask us to change the hours, saying that he needed that done, and we agreed with him. Any questions or comments on that? General public? Okay, seeing none. That's all I have for ordinance changes. Any
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
motion by Scott, second by Craig to close the public hearing. Discussion, all those in favor? 5. Okay. Someone want to make a motion to
Yeah.
send these ordinance changes to the Board of Selectmen to be put on the ballot at town meeting?
Well, we should vote on those, removal of those items.
Okay. You want to make a motion?
Sure, I'll make a motion to remove the commercial farm definition out of Article 2 definition section and to strike the line commercial farm 11.3 on the Article 9 district regulation land use table.
Have a second.
I'll second.
Motion by Scott, second by Craig. Discussion, all those in favor? Okay. Now I'll make a motion that we send these ordinance amendments to the Board of Selectmen to be put on the ballot at town meeting.
Second it.
Motion by myself, second by Scott. Discussion, all those in favor? 5-0. Okay. CEO report.
No report
No
tonight.
report tonight. Approval of minutes for March 10, 2025.
Motion to approve the minutes for March 10th, 2025 as written.
Second it.
Motion by Craig, second by Scott to approve the minutes for March 10th. Discussion, all those in favor? 5. Bills, Mr. Treasurer.
I'll make a motion to approve the payment of $40.74 for the public hearing we had this evening.
Motion by Scott, second by Craig to approve Portland Plus Hill for $40.74 for a public hearing act. Discussion, all those in favor? Communications. I don't have any communications in front of me. Anybody else on the board have any communications? Other business, discuss comprehensive plan. I guess, Scott, you went to the budget committee last Tuesday and proposed some funding for the plan, and it was not approved. You want to comment on that?
No, I'm not gonna make any comment, because, well, I don't think that some of the board really quite appreciate what a comprehensive plan is. Explained several different ways to the board and to the, with the select board, seemed like they still had questions, didn't see the value. We didn't have paperwork. Unfortunately, our schedule of getting things together didn't really come together to have paperwork to justify. But, yeah, we spent close to 50 minutes talking about a very small percentage of the budget that was coming out of undesignated fund anyway, so I think that's all I'll say on that.
Okay, there is some money in there for the plan, though, isn't there? In the budget now, a small amount?
I think
$2,600?
$2,200.
$2,200. So maybe what we'll do is we can proceed with some of the basic data updates and slowly go through and very diligently and conservatively spend that money to start reviewing the plan and see how far it gets us.
We did finally get a cost from Southern Maine Planning.
Yep.
$40,000.
Yep.
I think that was basically redo. I have a sneaky suspicion they probably have the file and Word documents, so I think we're gonna ask to see if we can't get that so that we at least don't have to reproduce, which will save a lot of money
Nope.
and time.
Well, I think nowadays too, you can actually take a picture and just copy, cameras are smart enough to just copy the text from, I guess, yeah, I mean, you're right
You
there.
can, but I mean, you can change the PDF, which we have, but it changes the formatting. It's just a lot of work. So if we can get the original
Is
Word
there,
document,
are
better.
there, I mean, grant money? Is any opportunities
That's
there?
something we can explore.
So the funny thing is about grants, getting some of this grant stuff is you generally need to have your work comp plan consistent with your zoning ordinance.
Well, wouldn't they give us a grant to do that? I mean, that's something we'll have to explore.
Yeah, we'll have to take a look at it.
Maybe we'll just do this in small baby steps and then go from there.
I think a lot of, did the quest checklist go out a couple meetings ago?
Yes,
Yeah.
I think you guys should all have it.
I have it, yes.
So in April, the state will have the demographic information is. I found online the DOT demographics of our bridges, so I'll have that. So in April, we can reach out to the state
Yep.
planner to get the demographics. Haven't spent a whole lot of time going through the checklist, but I don't think it'll take too long.
Well, it's something we can work on at a later date.
But we should get a comp review committee meeting together at some point, probably this fall. And go through that checklist.
Okay, budget discussion. Other than that, everything went fine?
Yeah.
Okay. Did they approve our salaries, I hope?
Have no idea.
Okay, we have a request here from Central Maine Power. They're working on the substation on Henry Hill Road, excuse me, is it
Emery Circle.
Henry Hill and Emery Circle? They've been working on that for, I think, almost a year now, I think. They would like to request their construction hours to be modified from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. Monday through Saturday to 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Their original hours were Monday, 7 to 5 p.m., Saturday, 7 a.m. to 12 p.m. They would like Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., and then on Saturdays from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m.
It actually looks like they just want to increase April 7th to 28th, 7
Yes.
a.m. to 7 p.m., so not just weekend, I mean, so including.
Right, on those specific dates, beginning April 7th and going through April 28th. Thank you, Roger.
Yeah, sorry, I just wanted to.
Yep. I think they're drilling holes for poles for the power or the lines, I guess. Do we need to make a motion to amend our,
So
the hours?
their findings has a condition that says what the construction hours are, and it says if additional time is needed, the applicant will notify the town code enforcement office prior to extending the time, which I feel like that gives them,
Yep,
however, I didn't feel comfortable not bringing it to the board.
how does the board feel? I don't have an issue.
I don't have an issue with that.
Fine, except for the Saturday one.
Well, the sun's up. you know, at that time.
Well,
So
why don't we do this with a caveat that if there are complaints from residents at the office, or no? Patty says no.
Well, because, I think I would want to go out on one of the days that they're running the equipment.
See how loud it is?
I think the caveat that I would want to put is that if it would be too loud for me
Yep,
at my house,
yep,
then we say no.
okay. The other thing that we talked about was that maybe it's better to get this done earlier in the season, when people are still
Inside,
inside,
Not out.
when this gets dragged into May and June, and they're mowing their lawns, they're having their barbecues, they're listening to trucks and drilling, and engines revving at 7 o'clock on the weeknight, so.
there is a benefit to getting it over faster.
And they're only asking for 3 weeks,
Yes.
21 days.
And then the caveat would be that if they go past the 27th, they would have to come back to us and get additional approval.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm fine with it. Roger?
yeah,
Heath?
100% fine.
Okay. Anybody like to address the board tonight, other than to our three spectators? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn at 7:33.
second.
Motion by myself, second by Roger to adjourn at 7:33. Discussion? All those in favor? All right, good evening.